just go ahead and start.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yep.
So, welcome out to Time with Uncle Sam. Tonight we've got Mr. Chris Wernimont coming to us from just north of here, right? Up towards Indianapolis.
Yes, New Palestine. Yep.
We're going to talk about the importance of a comprehensive plan and some of the things you can think about for responsible growth and different areas that a community can increase and grow in. And so before we get into all that though, Chris, do you want to just go ahead and by way of introduction, born, raised, kind of your life career path, and then we'll kind of get into your story getting into county government or local government.
Yeah. Okay.
And being on a plan commission.
All right, very good. Thanks, Sam. Well, appreciate you being here. Appreciate you inviting me here tonight, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. I grew up here in Aurora.
Okay.
I went to South Durban High School. When I was born in actually Ames, Iowa. My dad was at Iowa State University, but when he graduated, he got a job with Seagram's Distilleries. When I was just a baby, and we moved here to Southern Indiana.
All the way from Iowa.
All the way, yep, Ames, Iowa, right. So we went from the flat country, which is northern Indiana as well, to this beautiful hilly area. So definitely was a great place to grow up. A lot of friends here. Still have a lot of connections here, and I look forward to this discussion and some of the other discussions that I've had with a number of you folks.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So you graduated high school here then?
Yes, yeah, graduated.
Where'd you go after high school?
So after I graduated, I went to school at Rolls-Holman Institute of Technology, and
That's over in Bloomington, right?
it's in Terre Haute.
Terre Haute.
And then got a chemical engineering degree, bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and a master's degree in chemical engineering also.
Oh wow.
And then I went to work for Eli Lilly right out of college. So I worked there for about 15 years. Resigned to start my own engineering consulting business. Did that about 7 years, and then I went back to the private sector, so to speak, and kept working with startups and smaller companies and so forth. So that's been my career path. But I've lived in Central Indiana my entire adult life, and about 20 years ago, my wife and I moved to New Palestine, Indiana, which is on the southeastern side of Indianapolis. One of the reasons is just because it's closer to here, this closest part of Indianapolis to be here. And my whole profession, my whole career has been with the pharmaceutical industry. So, and Central Indiana is a great place for that. Eli Lilly has been an anchor for this state economy and so forth. And it was a great place to learn a lot of the skills that I learned that I continue to practice today. In my profession.
Okay.
So
what was your introduction into local government?
So I've always been interested in, always paid attention like a lot of folks, listen to what's going on at a national level and so forth. But I didn't really understand or appreciate how important it was to get involved with local politics until my two girls got older and kind of left the house. So they went off to college. I had all this extra time. So what am I going to do with it? Drive my wife crazy a little bit. And so I decided to start going to town council meetings, and they wanted to put a subdivision adjacent to our property in our backyard. And so I wanted to make sure that the standards would match the standards of the subdivision we're in. One of the big challenges that we have in New Palestine and that part of southeastern Indiana, southeastern part of Indianapolis, is that it's the only part of central Indiana around Indianapolis that's not fully developed.
Really?
So there's a lot of interest, and a lot of people like the proximity.
When you say fully developed, what do you mean? What's different about New Palestine versus the other areas that are quote unquote fully developed?
Well, I think, there's still a lot of rural areas. There's still a lot of open farmland. If you drive from 465 to New Palestine, it's an 8-mile drive, and half of that is cornfields. Okay. and bean fields. You go anywhere else around 465, you go up north, you're in Carmel.
Right.
You're north of that, you're in Westfield, and you're in these extremely built out areas. There's no rural character at all left.
Okay. So, started attending council meetings?
Yeah.
What-
So right. Yeah. So I started. So I wanted to make sure that and we had a comprehensive plan at the time at the town. So all towns have comprehensive plans. All counties have comprehensive plans, and I didn't know what a comprehensive plan was until I got involved with this. And then what I found as I worked with other neighbors, and we pulled together and organized what's called a remonstration, right? Which is we're objecting to or we're concerned about a growth project or development project that's going on, literally in our backyard, right? And the comprehensive plan said in there that future growth should match current growth or current or existing standards.
Right.
So we use that to our advantage to say, okay, as we went to town council meetings, went to plan commission meetings. First it goes to the plan commission. So that's the first battlefield is the discussion in the plan commission, and so that's where you have an opportunity to kind of draw the battle lines and figure out what's really going on, and then the plan commission will make a recommendation to the town council.
Okay.
Well, typically, the town council goes along with whatever that recommendation is.
Okay.
So, and that's not uncommon at a county level or anywhere else. So typically that's why the plan commissions are probably one of the most important commissions especially in high growth areas.
When you said you didn't even know what a plan commission was, what?
Yeah.
If you were to explain to your younger self what a plan commission was when you didn't know what one was.
Yeah. So I'll answer that question. But what I said was I didn't know what a comprehensive plan was.
Oh, comprehensive plan.
Right.
Okay.
So a comprehensive plan it's basically a 100-page document that basically spells out how a community or a county wants to see its future. So if you in the case of New Palestine, we had some language in there about we have existing subdivisions that have certain density, a certain architecture, something as simple as a 12-inch overhang on the side of a house. Now, you wouldn't think that would be a big deal, but if you go around and you look at some of these high volume subdivisions that have been put in, they don't have any overhang, and it's not a good look. So even something as simple as a 12-inch overhang can really make a difference in the appearance of a subdivision and the value of that home and of that area. So learning about those kinds of things, and then using that comprehensive plan, and you can look through those 100 pages and you can find things that can kind of counteract or conflict with what you want, but it's a matter of how well those things are written. And then so fast forward, 3 years later when I'm on the plan commission and we're going through updating our comprehensive plan, now I'm seeing it from a perspective of, hey, I've been on that side as a citizen trying to make sure that development happens in a way that's responsible. I want to make sure that this language, now that I'm on the plan commission, I'm on the board now, I want to make sure this language is put in here in a solid way so that it can be, reinforced, down the road.
What are some of so you talk about a plan commission and a comprehensive plan. You knew what the plan commission was, didn't know what a comprehensive plan was. How long have you been on that plan commission now? And have you guys redone that comprehensive plan?
Yeah. So we, the comprehensive plan I was mentioning was developed.
That's your blueprint or the plan for how you're going to grow, correct?
Yeah. That's a really good way to think of it. It's a blueprint how
the growth you would like to see.
Yeah. Is it going to be really fast? Is it going to be moderate? Is it going to be slow? Is it going to be, and then in what ways do you encourage certain types of development?
Okay, gotcha.
And I think you asked about the plan commission as well. So, the plan commissions are appointed by town council members.
Okay.
So, at least we're.
Or at least for a town plan commission.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you go up to a county plan commission, might be a different way, but
Yeah, and
you guys.
I think as you described it here in Dearborn County, it sounds like it's a little different than what I'm used to.
How many people are on your plan commission?
At the town, there's 7.
Okay, I think Dearborn County has 9, and one of those people is put on there. It's whoever the surveyor is sits on there. A Purdue Extension Office person sits on there. Then you have a commissioner sits on there. One of the commissioners, one of the 3. One of 7 councilmen sits on there, and then I believe council gets 2 other appointments, and the commissioners get 3 other appointments. So there's a total of 9 people sitting on that board, and that's for the whole county. Then I guess you've got individual towns have their different plan commissions, which I'm not sure how those are made up. But for Dearborn County, that's my understanding how that works.
Yeah, and so with Hancock County, that's 7, not 9. There's 7, and then there's one of them, and I don't know if she's a voting member or not, but she's the superintendent of the schools.
Okay.
Or of or she's elected or appointed by the various school corporations in the county. So it's one of the 3 or 4 superintendents.
Sure.
They kind of take turns every year. Oh, it's your turn to do this, and so forth.
So you mentioned a comprehensive plan
Mm-hmm.
and having a blueprint for the county and responsible growth. What are the top 4 or 5 things that really impact a comprehensive plan, or you need to be thinking about? Because you drop a pebble in the water, you change something, and there's always a ripple effect. You drop 5 pebbles in the water, and things kind of, there's a lot of different ripple effects. And if there's not forethought and intentionality, there's a lot of things that by the time they kind of grow together, you look back and you go, well, that wasn't really an efficient way to do that, or we could have laid that out better, or we could have, done this in a more efficient way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can't necessarily go
You're
back
right.
then once you've already put in massive infrastructure somewhere else. So
Right, and that's if you think about local politics or local government, the main goal of local government, the main responsibility of local government is what I would consider 5 things, and that's roads, which traffic and the impact of traffic, et cetera, goes together. You've got schools, fire, police, and sewer, right? So those are the 5 main infrastructure elements to local government, right? So how do we serve the people? How do we serve the local people? And that's where I think a lot of us, and I was the same way before I got into local government or local politics, 5, 6, 7 years ago, whenever that was. But in my 20s and my 30s, my 40s, politics was what's going on at the national level. What's the president up to? What are the senators up to?
Right.
What's Congress doing? And all those issues are really nothing to do with local government. Very little. Local government really has little to do with those big issues. Even our parties don't have much to do with those at the local level. So how do we best serve the people? How do we best serve the people from creating infrastructure in our roads, in our sewers, in our police, in the services for fire, and then our schools, of course. So one of the big challenges that we have as a planning commission where I'm from is we have so much potential growth coming our way that when subdivisions come in front of us, we have to think, what is the impact on those 5 things?
okay.
And that's one of the things that because of my experience being on the other side, when we wrote the comprehensive plan, we were debating or discussing the comprehensive plan. It was just a year ago when we created that. We basically updated it in 2025. Was, hey, we need to have a plan on how any new development affects those 5 things. And so that's now written into our comprehensive plan. The previous version didn't have that.
What you can get in the right ditch or the left ditch. My dad always said, just walk down the center of the road. The straight and narrow path, so to speak. What is an example of how a new development can be a healthy thing, or can be an unhealthy thing? Can you give an example of, for instance, of how it may affect when it comes to those 5 areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Dearborn County doesn't quite have the same issues that we have because our topography is so different, right? So I live in flatland country.
Okay.
So flatland is perfect for huge developments. D.R. Horton, Lennar, these large companies, large home building companies, corporations. They just want to maximize their profit, right? That's what corporations do. And so if they can have things, if they can have a high density, building materials that are not, the best, I'll put it that way, and they do high density, well, then they maximize their profit. But what's that do to the town, right? What's that do to those big five? Well, it affects the roads way more than lower density housing or higher standards of architecture and so forth. So so our challenge is we can't let D.R. Horton come in here and build some 400 house subdivision that's just going to overwhelm our schools. It's going to overwhelm our roads. That's going to we're going to have to beef up our police and fire, those kinds of things. So that's the main challenge that we face. Now, Dearborn County has the advantage because of the topography. You don't have quite the same allure, if you will. D.R. Horton and Lennar are not looking at the Lothar Creek Valley and thinking, man, that'd be a great place to put in 400 homes, right? Because it's so hilly, and you can only put the roads in the valleys or on the ridges. But the comprehensive plan is still very important in an area like this because you can put in your comprehensive plan language as to what's really important to you as a community, what's important to you as a county, and to me, growing up here and being on the outside looking in, if you will, but in a way I'm not. I'm kind of on the inside too because I grew up here. I look at that Lothar Creek Valley and I think that's one of the most beautiful areas in the entire state of Indiana, if not the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And if I'm on the Plan Commission or if I'm in Dearborn County, I want to do what I can to preserve that. What can I? And I want to put some kind of language in the comprehensive plan that says we need to preserve our natural beauty of our landscapes, something like that. And just basic language like that can be very powerful when it comes to development that comes before the Plan Commission. And you can cite those kinds of things and say, hey, I don't think that fits that vision that we all came up with 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago that said we want to preserve our natural landscapes.
So you mentioned the Lothar Creek Valley. What are some examples of some healthy growth that we should be on the lookout for? Because there's a lot of what's gone on in the last few years from the voter base and a lot of people who aren't necessarily involved in government has just been no, we don't want this. And when you're coming forward always saying no, we don't want something, some of the people who are working hard on those boards or in county government just kind of get the feeling that these people are anti-growth, they're anti-everything, these are pitchfork people, which, I mean, that's right. From their perspective, hey, if I were sitting on that board, I might think the same thing. Mm-hmm. What is something that, an area like ours, what are some of the things we need to be thinking about to look for that would go, that really fits?
Well, yeah, I think if you go back, let's go back 40, 50 years, right? So the house that we're in right now, the house that if you go down to Sunnyside and Aurora and up on the hill above Sunnyside, that had to be developed at some point. So what was that? If you drive up that area, you see homes that there's variation in their architecture. You see relatively good sized lots, and you see that it contours with the land, right? So you would have to put something in that, some kind of language about contouring with the land. I think that's an important part of whatever type of growth, because you have to have growth. There's going to be growth, right? There's no such thing as no growth, right? There's either little growth, moderate growth, high growth. And how you define responsible growth is different. Is a difference of opinion. right? And that's why you have boards. That's why you have 7 people on the board instead of 1.
Right.
So you have this disparate ideas and disparate vision of what that means. And I think we can, for the most part, you can find something in the in this moderate growth or low to moderate growth area that makes sense to the preponderance of people.
Gotcha. So you've got your plan commission. They have their comprehensive plan, their blueprint for what responsible growth looks like. You mentioned that a lot of that comes from based on topography, where you're at. If you've got a major highway running through your area, or for like down here, you got a major river. There's nothing really you can do about that. That affects how or the options of where you can do things. You know, if you're on a cliff, one area, or you're out in the plains.
Right.
What is something that can really substantially alter or affect the plan commission? Not to say blindside is not the right word, but as you have a blueprint for how you want to grow, what's something that can potentially significantly change that very quickly?
I think the best answer to that is apathy, right? So what I mean by that is, so let's say we've gone to, like in our case, we went through all this effort. We had over a year's worth of meetings, and we had 2 or 3 plan commission meetings over the course of 2 or 3 months to consolidate and finalize the plan commission. And I know there's something similar going on right now, from what I understand, in Dearborn County. Isn't that right? Isn't the plan, comprehensive plan being developed for the county?
I'm not sure what the status of the comprehensive plan is.
So I think it's in the process of being developed. I don't know if it's in the middle of that process or towards the end, but let's say you go through this process and you have this comprehensive plan. We all agreed on what the vision for our county or our community should be over the next 10 plus years. Well, 4 years from now, we have different people that have moved on. They're not on the plan commission anymore. You have different town council members. You have different county commissioners. And now we have a big development that comes in. One of these major players from the outside, big corporations, whatever, and they want to build a bunch of apartment complexes, for example. Forgetting what's in that comprehensive plan, or not having knowledge of how important that comprehensive plan is probably the biggest threat to it.
Okay. So
when you get appointed to, I don't know how it works down here, but I would imagine it's similar. When I got appointed to the plan commission, there wasn't a whole list of things I had to be trained on. I said, okay, you're on the plan commission. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, you show up to the meetings and you stuff comes before and you talk about it, and you basically just follow the people's lead that have been there before, which is a little bit dangerous, right? So me being a little bit of a maverick, I would read everything and I would challenge everything. So and that's what you need. You need to have that kind of approach, and the people need to remember that all these meetings are very important. To come to plan commission meetings, to come to county commissioner meetings especially when something's on the table, and hats off to the folks down here. I heard about this TIF discussion that was going on a redevelopment commission, I believe, and a lot of people showed up for that. That's great. That is how our constitutional republic is supposed to work. We're supposed to watch and pay attention to what our government is doing, because it's our government.
Right.
So that's a great example where the people showed an interest, understood the interest, and showed up for it, and worked together, with the commissioners. Either during the meeting itself or phone calls afterwards or letters or communications or whatever else, letting those folks know, hey, it's not just, if you're one of those people that just showed up, got appointed to the plan commission and just showed up, that ain't your job. You got to do more than that. You got to understand what the plan commission or the comprehensive plan is. You got to understand what being put in front of you right now, and you need to understand what the other people in your community think about it as well.
One of the things that was a topic of conversation just a few years ago was Link 101, and I kind of found out about it or heard a little bit about it whenever I ran for Senate. I started seeing these Stop Link 101 signs come up, and I didn't take a position on it when I was running for Senate. I didn't know much about it. My dad grew up in a small community just outside of Minneapolis, and my mom grew up in a small farming community just outside of Peoria, Illinois. And 74 actually went through my grandpa's farm, and they built that for, as my grandpa was there, hey, we want to bring this thing forward. And so the part of my childhood is going, wow, a new road, that can bring a lot of awesome opportunity. Caterpillar headquarters is out of Peoria, Illinois. They had a Caterpillar plant right there in Morton, Illinois. They built it in a way where they built basically an overpass to where the town wasn't divided. I grew up fishing in a pond and then swimming in my mom's Uncle Jay's pond that the state built for free because they needed dirt to build this overpass to where the railroad could go underneath 74. And so I've heard on the one hand a lot of positive things. And then on the other hand, I used to live in Rising Sun when we first got married, and I would drive 156 all the time, 56, 156, whichever road you call that. And that road's a disaster. So I hear of this brand new road project. I'm going, this is dumb. Why can't we just fix the road we already have? But I didn't really know much about it. How does a situation like Link 101, if that were to go through, what are some things that, if you're thinking about responsible growth, what are some things that would be affected in a comprehensive plan like Dearborn County's? And do you think that would be a positive or a negative?
Well, I certainly think that would have been a negative.
Why is that?
Link 101. I think,
as far as relating to the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going back to the context of our discussion in terms of a comprehensive plan in Dearborn County, and I don't know if Dearborn County has this or not, but that's what if that's being developed right now, I think I would strongly recommend that there would be some type of language in there about preserving our natural landscapes, preserving our rural communities, preserving our way of life. Some language around that. And if I look at, as I mentioned before, the Lofty Creek Valley is got to be one of the most beautiful areas in the entire state of Indiana, if not the Midwest. There's a 400-foot elevation change between the top of the ridges on both sides and the creek bottom.
Wow.
And if you come down US 50 from Dillsboro to Aurora and you see that off to your right, you can see that. It's like, wow, that is a deep, deep valley. So just, if building a Super 2 highway through that, well, first of all, you're going to have to blow up both sides of that valley at some point, right? Some part of that ridge has got to be taken out. And how much of that 400 foot you got to take out? 200 feet? 250? 150? That's a lot of dirt, no matter what it is. And it's certainly going to change the landscape and the look of it, not to mention the cost. And I know that's not quite what your question is to do with the cost, but that's another issue with that whole thing was the cost was out of control, and the estimates were based upon numbers that were not even, they were based upon estimates for flatland areas, not for the cost of doing work down here and cutting into those ridges, which would be 2 or 3, 4 times what those cost numbers were. So I think the original estimate was 200 million what they were floating around, but no, it would have been more like $500, $600, $700 million for that. Now, in terms of getting back to your question, the other aspect of it was what's that do to the community, right? So when you have, and what's the main drivers of that? And
Right.
and it seemed to be, from the studies that I looked at, it seemed to be more about moving freight from northern Kentucky up to to Indianapolis faster. So how does that serve the community, right? I mean, what are the drivers there? And it's easy for us to get caught into, oh wow, this is going to be a new road. We can get from Vevey to Versailles, 2 minutes faster or 5 minutes faster or whatever. Okay, how does that that helps the freight, but that doesn't help. Does that really make an impact on the community? And then what does that bring in? So now we're bringing in more more gas stations, more those kinds of side businesses
Right.
that would be supported by that. You're not bringing in major industry, right? So it's not like what you experienced with
Caterpillar
yeah,
plant
with
or
Caterpillar,
something.
all that. So that's the kind of thing you have to be really cautious of. And as you look at a comprehensive plan, how that will affect it, it really affects it two ways, as I see it. How does that affect your community, the culture, the impact of of people's day-to-day lives? I'm glad it was stopped. So
Okay.
we'll have to see how that holds. I mean, if you look at the actual announcement from the governor's office or from NDOT, it was put on hold. It was not canceled. It was basically put on the shelf. So there's a
So
lot.
that could still be potentially brought back up at some point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, right? And that's why elections, this election, all these elections are real important because we need to get people involved that support those kinds of values.
Right. Well, as we wrap up, anything else you want to cover?
No, I think just at a high level, the plan or the comprehensive plan is a very important tool for local governments, both town, cities, and counties. If I would encourage anybody that if you hear about comprehensive plan discussions, go to the county courthouse or wherever they're being held, take a look at it, become involved in that, read about it, and ask questions of your appointed and your elected leaders about the comprehensive plan, because it's got a lot to do with the future of the community.
Perfect. Chris, thanks for coming on
Okay.
Time with Uncle Sam. So,
You bet. My pleasure.
I'm Uncle Sam, signing off from the great state of Indiana, where all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. God bless you guys.